That tiny glowing thing, that's the mic. You can want to clip it.
Oh, yeah, I should clip it to myself. Grant. Molly, is this good?
I think so.
Am I? Okay, let me know. Yeah, sorry, you can't move. No. I'm here, yeah. Sorry, I should probably take my own glass. Indeed. Is this, do you have it? Yes?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about adjusting it a little bit, but
Okay.
nice and clear.
The mic is in the right spot.
Yes, definitely.
Cool.
What? So we know Sam from St. Chrysostom. He's a theologian and residence there.
You're St. Chris folks. Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone who has claimed a seat, please sit down. So we know which seats are open. We've got there, that one's open. Open seat right there.
Oof. Are we on?
Yay!
Wonderful.
I want to borrow the mic from you for a sec.
Please do. It's such a burden.
You know what's going on.
I would love to know what's going on.
So you know what's going on.
Okay.
Hand those around. Thank you. So as we finish, as folks get the program, this is just to give you a sense of what is to come including some of the music for our service at 5:30. So please hold on to them. You'll need them for church. So as we're getting settled, for those of you who have not met me, because you're here to see Sam, I am Stacy Allen. I am the current chaplain here. Raring to surpass Sam in terms of tenure. I only have 2 more years before I can say that. But I am. When we realized that your ordination anniversary was coming, I was, we were thinking about like, how would we celebrate this milestone? Well, it being Brent House and it being Hyde Park, an academic paper, right?
Yeah.
Of course. And so we also, it happened, we have Nathan who has chosen the path of being the caretaker of our history. He is our historian in residence, right? Historian in residence, that's the title. He is working on a PhD in church history at the Div School, has lived here for this is your 4th year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This counts as my fourth.
He also shovels snow when it snows. So
Yeah.
depending on what happens here, it might go. And I am just delighted. I had a chance to look at a draft of the paper that Nathan wrote, and I am continuing to learn things about Sam's ministry here that fill me with awe and gratitude. So I am going to just hand things over to Nathan. He's going to present, he's not going to read the whole paper, it's 40 pages. He's going to present an overview of what we called themes and vibes.
Yes.
After which we are going to have, as you'll note in your program, a musical interlude. I don't know what that will be. It's a song.
It's definitely a song.
And then Sam will give us some reflections in hindsight. So thank you all for coming. I am just delighted at how many folks are here today. And I'm going to hand the mic over to you.
Thank you. Okay, we're good. Well, first of all, as Brent House's historian in residence, I welcome you. The origins of that title is actually a conversation that I had with Charlie Hopkins a year ago when he was in here for the annual meeting of the board. Wave, Charlie. And we were talking about, I don't know why, about Sam's position at St. Chrysostom's on the north side here as theologian in residence. And I was like, well, it would be very easy for me to be historian in residence here because I am a historian and I do reside here. And it sounds like the perfect title that has no responsibilities and that is bequeathed on me just by claiming it. So I appropriated the title for myself and the responsibilities came. But I am delighted over the past year to have worked through both the diocesan archives, the mixed up files of Brent House, to have had 3 interviews with Sam, who is a delightful interviewee, and to talk with a couple of different members of the community who were there in assembling an overview of Sam Portaro's 22-year ministry here. Now, I'll say, just so you have a sense of what I was dealing with, this is the file upstairs in the attic of letters of thanks to the chaplain from throughout Sam's tenure. You can see that it is overflowing. There is just so many wonderful things I would have never imagined that had gotten preserved, kept here. And if you walk through the dining room and the sunroom, you can see a partial archival collection of that I've assembled for all of you to peruse at your leisure after this. But that said, I need to talk in very, very broad strokes. What I knew about Sam when I arrived here was the legend that was passed on down to me. That this ministry was moribund and directionless that it looked like a house of horrors or a haunted house. And that, in Sam's own terms, it was like the Man of Sorrows in Isaiah. It had no beauty that anyone should desire it. Sam arrives here in 1982 after the greater part of a decade, Brent House having no full-time minister. And within a year, he's making plans to renovate the entire house. Now, the legend is true, but it is definitely a version of great man history, and it doesn't fit with Sam's own pastoral theology that ministry is not a campus ministry is not a ministry to the students, it's a ministry for the ministry of students. In overview of like the 22 years, Sam told me that he had about like 3 different ministries, and they all were entirely different ministries with different needs. For the first 7, then these break down into periods of roughly 7 years each. For the first 7 years, the focus was just rebuilding the community and the physical house itself. For the next 7 years through into the 90s, there was a focus on vocational programming, on programming for both the professional schools and the undergrads that helped students think about their academic life and the life of the mind through the lens of what are you bringing to the church as a member? And at that same time, also thinking about the vocation of the campus minister and writing the defining book on what it is to be a mainline Protestant campus minister. And then in the last set of 7 years, Brent House made a commitment to be a center for campus ministry formation, to have a robust internship program and peer ministry. And this also set the stage for the transition to Stacy's chaplaincy. So to grossly oversimplify, I am thematically clumping these 3 ministries of 7 years each into broad themes that, of course, all overlap and bleed into each other. There's hospitality, there's vocation, and there's ministry. Sam had a real legacy to build on that he realized the second that he landed here. He had the work of Edna Biller, whose portrait you can see to the side here. Biller was active in the Episcopal Churchwomen, and she started a ministry of hospitality in December. This December, it will be 100 years since she gathered a group of international students, mainly from India and China, over Christmas at the hall of an Episcopal college in Racine, Wisconsin, for a Christmas gathering. A lot of these students were not going to fly back home to China or India for the Christmas holidays. A lot of their dorms were not functioning, considering that most of the American students had left. And so Biller made space for them. And this gesture of hospitality extended into an ongoing ministry of having conferences. They settled into a rhythm of having them in September and at Christmas, bringing together international students and American students together. And the Episcopal Church, the Office for Foreign and Domestic Missions, bought this property that we're sitting in now in 1930 to continue the work that Biller's hospitality had organically started and to give it form and shape. Now, many, many things happened over the years between 1930 and 1982. Significantly, in the 60s, the National Church withdrew pretty much most of its funding and support for this mission. For another, Brent House became very connected to, and the overlap just gradually became one of identity with the campus ministry to the University of Chicago, the Episcopal Church Council at the university, which continues today as the board for Brent House. And all of these shifts and changes and the loss of funding and who owns the house now and who's responsible led to a period that, like, once the National Church sells the property in 1975, John Pyle, the last full-time consistent minister at Brent House, also departs in 1975.
His portrait is in the dining room.
Yes. And the collective loss of direction leaves Brent House in the wind for a good decade until Sam's arrival. And so Sam harkens back to like the origins of Brent House. This is a place that's about hospitality. This is a place that's open to you whether you're an Episcopalian or if you're not an Episcopalian. I saw a letter in that big file that I showed you earlier of a student early on in Sam's ministry remembering that his introduction to this living room was that you would not find a place anywhere else on campus that had more theological debate than this room. And that was very intentional. By the end of Sam's ministry, he was very proud that he had Anglo-Catholics and people who were doing Bible study with InterVarsity in the same congregation. And that is a real achievement. Another major part of hospitality is knowing that you have a space. If you want to let people into your space, having that space actually be a space that is safe for them to be in and an enjoyable space. And that is not overcrowded. And that was not the case with Brent House when Sam arrived. By the time that he was done with the first year of ministering here, we were averaging, like 35, 40 students. And we were trying to fit chapel into the sunroom over there. So things weren't working. And Sam very quickly and very wisely began preparations to fully and extensively renovate the house. He used venture and mission funds that the church had available to fund. I hope that you can see these photos that I took from the diocesan archives well, but it really shows the differences. On the left there, you see what the basement was, this kind of network of rooms with like a little hallway snaking around, and then what the initial plans envisioned for a chapel there in that space. And then you can also likewise see how the kitchen here, and you can also see the layout of the present chapel area and how they were smushing into the dining room to fit everyone. But you can also see how the kitchen also has a scullery off of it and a pantry, and how the plan shows the kitchen that we all know and love today with its like open modern plan and island. Now, I don't know, how many of you have were in this house, visited this house before 1988? Just by show of hands. Okay, so all the rest of you, which is the majority of people in the room, do not know a Brent House that was not rebuilt by Sam Portaro. I want to show you some photos of how the chapel was, how the basement was reclaimed as a chapel. Also, these are from an extensive photo album that Sam, a true gift to historians everywhere, meticulously kept as a documentation of the space. There's a very simple altar that I'm sure, and lectern that I'm sure many of you remember, with the carpeted platform and the beautiful restored skylight. So Sam made Brent House, not just a place that you could go to, but a place that where you could worship the Lord in beauty and holiness. And another major important strand of this theme of hospitality is Brent House's hospitality to the LGBT community during, especially the 1980s, when that was not something that was common. Yeah, where it was not the norm, accepted. We were hosting in this very living room coming out meetings for a gala. They did not want to have their coming out meetings where people were being vulnerable and exploring their identity at a place where people could stalk them or track them down. And this space was an open and safe place where they could hold those meetings, which they did for a decade until it was safe to do that on campus. We hosted for about a decade, since we had a beautiful chapel now that we did not use on Sunday mornings. And that space went to Resurrection Metropolitan Community Church, a denomination founded in the late 60s for LGBT Christians who wanted a denomination that was affirming. That hospitality also means being there for that community in the harder times. Sam was a minister here during the AIDS crisis. You can see on the right the patch that we sent into the names AIDS quilt of commemorating people at Brent House. We have a program from outside of like Gala and other like LGBT focused organizations. Brent House is one of the first places on campus where we were having conversations about AIDS, about the silence of the church as a complicity in the epidemic. And then extending that hospitality meant that sometimes you got retaliation. In 1986, in the spring, a vandal looking to threaten and intimidate a resident here drew a blue swastika on the door to the house. And this is Sam's open letter to the Maroon in response to that, turning the other cheek and saying, we accept your besmirched cross in the way that we want to interpret it, as a cross, as a sign of our Christian devotion, and as a sign that the Christian ethic is to bear the burdens and the threats and the intimidation and the violence of the least among us. So I'm very impressed specifically by that hospitality, specifically as early as the 1980s. And that is a consistent thread that has run through the life of this ministry ever since Sam came here. Now, I want to turn and I want to talk about vocation. We have an ethos in place. We have hospitality as our attitude that we look at towards the world. We welcome the people in. What do we tell them to do? Who should they be? Who should we be? In this respect, Sam also had a forebearer in Brent House's history to look back to. Back in the late 70s, when I've looked over the memos of like the board meetings, it's all just like, what are we doing? Why are we here? The one clear voice was then Divinity School Dean Joseph Kitagawa. And he had, I think, a very like smart and piercing sense of like what Brent House should be. It has a mission of mutual interpretation as a campus ministry. It should interpret the church to the university and the university to the church. And, you know, it seems in the files that like everyone at these meetings kind of broadly agree with Kitagawa's take on this. But this is an aspirational vision, and it does not tell you how you interpret in either direction. And that's what Sam simultaneously to getting the house in order, Sam was also figuring out how to engage this vocation for Brent House. And the answer is kind of circular. The answer is vocation. On the right here, you see this flyer for the first of the programs. You can see my chronological scheme is kind of breaking apart because this is a flyer for 1985. But this is an early series that Brent House did with faculty from the medical school, looking at medicine as a tragic profession. What happens as a doctor when you fail? What happens when someone loses their life on your watch? How do you as a person and an individual deal with that emotionally, ethically, spiritually? So Brent House did this program. It was wildly successful. And the takeaway that the medical students who attended had was like, this is not a conversation that we're having in our classes. That's just not the setting for it. And there's no place on campus that's having them. And so through the rest of the 80s, Brent House became a center for the professional schools because back in those days at the University of Chicago, graduate students vastly outnumbered undergraduate students. Brent House became a center for the professional schools to meet and talk about vocation. We had, at the height of it, we had, I would say, let me count them out. We had a program running for the medical school that was a direct continuation of this kind of thing. We had a program running for the business school talking about like stakeholder obligations and philanthropy. We had a program for the law school. And we had, before they folded into each other, one's aimed at other graduate students going into researching and into teaching as vocations. So we had a max at the turn into the 90s of like 5 different programs, all focused on this kind of professional development and engagement. And, you know, there's people who would look at that and who would say, is that a church thing? Is that what a campus ministry should be doing? And I think Sam's response is very wise. Sam's response is, in sum, that if it's a human concern, it's a holy concern. God is concerned with every part of our lives. And the church, as the people of God, should also have that same concern. That's entirely appropriate. And these programs were also the ministry to the faculty, an affirmation of their vocation in these different realms. So those programs continued in a consistent way through the 90s until we had to like try other things. The part of it was simply that the professional schools caught on that this was a good idea and a thing they should be talking about. And they duplicated these exact same programs, and there was kind of like, do we need to be doing the same thing? And it was this prompt from the Spirit that maybe we should be doing something else. Maybe we should be thinking about other opportunities that we have. So there were other like programs, more casual like conversations with great minds and thinkers, more informal like dinner conversations just to be together as a Christian community on campus. There was also the initiative, especially among the undergraduates, to start an entire theater company that ran for a good like 6 years. So the range of what was possible in fulfilling this like notion of vocation was wide and vast. And it's part of why it's been a struggle to like write and summarize this history. It's truly, we can have a Christian perspective on anything that you're willing to bring, any gift that you're willing to bring to this community and live out in this community. That perspective also informed Sam's own writing and own thinking about his vocation as a campus minister. In the early 90s, through a grant from the Lilly Endowment, Sam and Gary Peluso wrote...
You didn't explain the Oprah Winfrey picture.
Do you want me to explain Oprah Winfrey? I wanted that to be like a general, we brought many people in for conversations, but we specifically brought Oprah Winfrey in on the eve of her nomination for an Oscar for The Color Purple. Not in this house, in the chemistry lecture hall, as you can see from the photo. But we were the ones who took the initiative to bring her in for a last lecture series. This was at the time when she was just like coming into national syndication, so it was still a plausible get and not like an astronomical. We were in from the ground floor. I mean, she's a Chicago legend. But it's this exact kind of like wild like moonshot invitation, and we did not have honorariums. We just had the promise of like, you will be able to like engage in an authentic conversation about things that you care about and that matter to you like spiritually. This series that we brought Oprah in for was specifically like a last lecture style series of like, what last words and remarks do you want to leave? But it's just kind of there as a broad general example of like the kinds of programs that existed from the mid 80s through to 2004. I do want to talk about Inquiring and Discerning Hearts, which is like half like a history of like mainline Protestant campus ministry. And Sam knows the details of that far more than I'm going to be able to rattle off. It would be a great thing to ask him about in the extended discussion. But then also a reinterpretation on the previous study, most influential study of campus ministry in the late 60s, the Danforth Report, which broke the role of a campus minister into the roles. Maybe you'll have to help me here, Sam. Prophetic, priestly, pastoral, and governance. And Sam's innovation in reinterpreting that was, these aren't the roles of the campus minister. These are roles that belong to the campus ministry as an entire community. Everyone in that community is called to work together to be prophetic, to be priestly, to govern, to pastor. And that insight informed the next and final phase of Sam's ministry, which was to get really intentional. There had been many instances where part-time interns just showed up at Brent House. They had a calling. They had a change in life direction. They wanted to see what this kind of ministry was about and try it themselves. And they were willing to do that for not much more than a free room and maybe a little bit of pay, if that. And by the mid-90s, Brent House was in a secure place, and we were able to take a step back and say, let's think about this intentionally. Let's think about nurturing this instead of just letting it happen. And that was the origins of the internship program and the peer ministry program here, which ran in some form or another, one of the two, from beginning in 1998. And this was actually the part of it that was hardest for me as an outside observer and as someone where the language of peer ministry kind of didn't exist here in the same way after COVID, to understand, was this a formal position? What were the responsibilities of it? And in talking with people who were peer ministers and in talking with Sam about the program, it really, the way that when I talked to Kevin Caruso, who was in the first cohort of peer ministers about it, said, no, it was really a way of Sam essentially to trick you into doing spiritual discernment. Here's a stipend, here's a set of responsibilities that, you can or should be doing, but really, here's an excuse to have time one-on-one to talk seriously about and to discern what your vocation is. And that's a real, that's not what I expected to find. Looking at this, I expected something that was really defined and really programmatic. But and I think it is to Sam's credit and his vision of ministry, it's about being flexible. It's about responding to the Spirit. And that guided the entire thing, the entire process of his 22 years here. I want to talk last. I said there is 3 themes. There's a 4th secret theme. I want to talk about Chiquita. I don't know. Sam could tell the story better than I could. But Chiquita emerged at a national gathering of Episcopal students and chaplains late in the evening as a vision of the Holy Spirit as playful, the Holy Spirit wandering in Carmen Miranda on the Chiquita Banana logo as a flamenco dancer with her castanets flying and her skirts billowing. The Holy Spirit personified as a figure of fun and delight and humor. And this in-joke proliferated until you can see here, this is, I believe, what, the last Province 5 gathering that you're to say, this is Sam's kind of going away from on the provincial level, which is just a whole Chiquita party. So the in-joke was essentially if you see this very common American logo, it is a reminder to pay attention and to think about where the Holy Spirit is going on. But it's also a joke. And that sense of fun and wry humor is something that I think is, In the same way that like Sam looked back to what Edna Biller did with hospitality and what Joseph Kitagawa taught us about our vocation, I think that this like this sense of humor and this sense of like playful engagement and recognition of God is an inheritance that Sam has left to Brent House moving forward. That was definitely one of the things that attracted me as a resident here and as someone who converted to the Episcopal Church here, was that both that Brent House was a space where you could take your Christian faith entirely and deeply seriously, and you were also encouraged, if not required, to have fun with it. And talking with Sam and looking over the copious newsletters that he wrote and the letters that he exchanged and the programs that he put together, that is a consistent theme. To look earnestly for the Spirit, no matter where that takes you. So that concludes my presentation. I'm very excited to hear Sam's response to me and to all of your questions. So we have a little, I think, like plays it, but this is like where you can take the mic.
Do you need the mic, Elizabeth?
I don't know, tech people, do I need the mic?
The mic's pretty sensitive. If you guys are near it, it can pick you up all the way from over there.
Okay, so.
Project enough.
The musical number was a surprise to me.
Yeah, the musical number got planned last night. I texted Stacy and said, can I sing a song? And we went back and forth and she said, we'll put it after Nathan's presentation. Oh my, this is a lot of people. And before the Eucharist, and it fits right in with the having fun.
Yes, good.
So, and I should say, I raised my hand when you said who walked in here before 1988.
Yeah.
And then you said, so nobody, you others, you don't remember the house before. I don't remember the house before. I walked in at the end of September 1987, and there was a drop cloth. And up the stairs. So it was all but done. It was just down to the dust, basically.
And will you tell us who you are?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Elizabeth Van, and I came in 1987 to do a PhD in linguistic anthropology, which took me forever. Yes, Sam knows. And I'm an educator, and I live down the street, basically, now, have for about the last 5 years. Yeah. Okay. All right, so fun, and yeah. And I will tell you that at the end of the church service this morning, the starting note was an A, and when Chris and I went over it 15 minutes later, it was a D, and now it's a B. So we'll see what happens. The student days, the Regenstein exams deadline are long ago, but I have found the lessons learned in these four walls, they still resound. But how do you thank someone who's taken you from Genesis to John? It isn't easy, but I'll try. If you wanted the moon, I would write across the sky in letters 1,000 feet high. To Sam, with love. The time has come to celebrate a ministry of a half century. And in my heart, I know that I am looking at a priest extraordinary. A priest who taught me right from wrong and weak from strong, and that's a lot to learn. What can I give you in return? If you wanted the stars, I would write across the hot sky in letters 10,000 feet high. To Sam, with love. If you wanted the stars, I would write across the sky in letters 10,000 feet high. To Sam, with love. Ba, 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 bum.
Literal hard act to follow. We're in a transition here, so let me put this on. There are a lot of things that have been said, and there are a lot more things that could be said. I do want to leave some space for questions, because when we held programs here, I would invite the speakers or the panelists who are going to participate in these programs to use a minimal amount of time to introduce themselves and to say a word or two about the topic, and then move into the questions as quickly as they could. Because my experience had been that most of us who come to an event like this come with a question. And the most frustrating thing to have to live through is an hour of presentation and a speaker that says, oh, we have 5 minutes left for questions, leaving a whole room full of people to take their questions back home with them. So I don't want to do that. I do want to say a couple of brief things about, I want to say a word of thanks to Nathan and to this community for this celebration. This is a tremendous gift and a great retrospective for me. And I can say, as a genuine tribute to Nathan here, that I learned a lot of things about this ministry that I didn't know. That, you know, for the gift to see ourselves as others see us. I have been treated to that in reading the draft of this report, and I really do look forward to seeing the finished product. This has been a marvelous run, and I think it may be helpful for you to know that among the themes, that there were other themes behind the scenes, or there were another way to express the themes that Nathan has raised up. And they go back to my own experience and my own study, logically. Most people know that I do have a Doctor of Ministry. What you may not know is what I did my thesis on. And my thesis was specifically written on the theology of the laity, which was a theology that really didn't come into being for the larger church, and certainly didn't come into being for the Roman Catholic Church until the period of renewal around Vatican II. And in that period, in the 60s, late 50s to the mid 60s, the two most important figures were Hendrik Kramer, and I've got my notes in front of me, and Yves Congar, two Northern Europeans, Roman Catholics, who wrote about specifically the role of the laity, the first order of ministry in the church, according to the Catechism. It's not the bishops, it's not the priests, it's the laity who are the first order of ministry. And so trying to wrestle with that reality and trying to close or reverse the kind of emphasis that took the expression of leadership as first among equals. If the Pope is supposed to be the first among equals, if a king is supposed to be the first among equals, somehow the first got emphasized and the equals got forgotten. And trying to reverse that so we understand that we all begin our lives and our ministries on equal ground with equal responsibilities to the human race. Some of us are called and appointed to positions of leadership, and I saw it my responsibility in this role to constantly remind us of this reality, that this is who we are called to be. The other theme was the word discernment, which is very important and very familiar to people in this room who have prepared for ordination and ordained ministry, but a word that is largely unknown by the first order of ministry, the lay members, because you're not encouraged to discern. The laity are often just encouraged to do whatever the leadership says. What I've struggled with and what I've tried to understand is how this dynamic of discernment plays out throughout our lives. And I was guided and encouraged by this into this kind of thought process by this work of working with a specific generational group at a specific time in their lives, when, as young adults, almost all of us are charged and suddenly find ourselves responsible for making some very important, life-changing, life-directing decisions. What am I going to do with my life? And once I've begun to think about what I'm going to do with my life, that has consequences in how I prepare for that. For some people, that means going to a trade school. For other people, that means honing a musical art or a craft. Okay. For many of us, that also includes the possibility of a committed relationship with another human being. These are all questions that arise in that period of our lives when we're 18 to 25 years of age, when we suddenly find ourselves, by the society, we're considered to have attained the age of majority, and we can vote and we can drink and we can start doing these things, taking authority and responsibility for ourselves. And the more I thought about this, and this will reflect how this process is a process that begins at birth and continues till our death. Discernment is not something that we just do and then forget about. It's not even something that we take up and do for a while and then put it aside. We're constantly discerning. It's what the whole process of weighing our options is about. Whether it's making a decision of whether we're going to go to the theater tonight or whether we're going to stay home and watch Netflix, what are we going to have to eat? Where are we going to put our time? Where are we going to put our energy? These are all issues of discernment. We've become accustomed to making these decisions without doing a whole lot of reflection about them. And some of these important decisions get very little reflection and very little thought on the front end. So things like preparation for marriage, marriage counseling, that's something the church has insisted upon, but never has articulated why. One of the reasons we found it important is because this is a very important decision and you need to be thinking about this decision. And we need to be working with you in a process that allows you to ask these questions and explore the responsibility you're about to undertake. Now, we do this in children's education. We do it through various stages in life. But once we reach the age of majority, we get sort of locked into the patterns and forget that we're supposed to be discerning all the time. This entire ministry is what it is, not because I was a whiz kid. It was because I tried to simply stay out of the way of the work of God in this place and assist wherever I could. And that meant paying attention to what's going on around me, what's happening in the community, and trying to respond to it with whatever abilities I had, and encouraging other people to do the same thing. Everybody in this room was born with talent, with intellect, with intelligence, with skill. Each person in this room has a vocation. Freud said we live out our vocations in two dimensions, love and work. For most of us, that's a committed relationship and family on the love quotient, or a commitment to a specific career path. It's a commitment to something that engages our passion and channels our passion. And work, which is the labor that we do to support our lives and the labor that we do collectively to support the life of a community and a culture. Those are the two major arenas that we live our lives in. And at various points in our lives, one or the other is maybe in the ascendancy or being, given a lesser role. And part of the struggle that we have is, as individuals, and I'm sure I see a lot of heads nodding, is trying to find the balance between these two, okay? And a lot of that was the work that we were doing in this particular location with students, with young adults who were trying to figure out how to balance all of this. How do I balance this intensely important work that I'm planning to do and preparing to do, and also have a relationship and a commitment to another human being that fulfills my life and fulfills that portion of my personality. So it was this business of understanding that this discernment stuff is something that we're all doing all of the time. The Chiquita thing can be boiled down to one very important theological question you could always ask. If it isn't fun, what's the point in doing it? That will help you discern. That will help you discern right there. If you've got to think about what you're going to do, just say, if it isn't fun, think very carefully about whether this is something you really need to do or something that really needs to be done. Making this house more hospitable tickled my creative bone. I really enjoyed the creativity of working through the process of making this house a place where we could do these kinds of things. And then working with the people who came and filled up these spaces and did these things. And a lot of the work that I've done since I retired from this ministry, I didn't really retire from ministry, I retired from this ministry and went directly into another ministry and continued to go into more and more ministries. And they range from the kinds of things we think about ministry down to the simple things like taking a load of acolyte vestments home and washing them and putting them on hangers and bringing them back to church because somebody needs to do this and I have the time this particular day to do this, do it, and make this contribution and be done with it, okay? So it's a matter of thinking about our lives, but it also occurred to me in the process of writing the book with Gary Peluso, I talked to a lot of people and read the work of a lot of people. I owe a deep debt to Sharon Parks for the work she did on young adult religion and religious and spiritual development of young adults. Sharon Parks wrote a very, very important book on that development. And it was big. I can't remember the title, the specific title, but it was Worthy Dreams was in the, Worthy and Dreams was in the title. Big Dreams and
Big dreams, worthy dreams. That's what I was
yeah, something like that. It was big and worthy, Big questions, worthy dreams. Thanks. Right, exactly. So Sharon and I collaborated. I communicated with her over that. And toward the end of that process, I met and started to talk with a woman named Joyce Mercer, who at the time was on the faculty at Princeton, where I was doing my DMin. That's how I connected with Joyce. And she eventually became a professor at Virginia Theological Seminary at the time that I was on the board of trustees at VTS. And so Joyce and I had an opportunity 3 or 4 times a year, whenever I had to go to Alexandria for a board meeting, Joyce and I made an appointment to sit down and talk with each other. And Joyce was working on, she wrote a great book called Welcoming Children. And it's for all of those churches that say, oh, we love children, we welcome children. And she goes to great lengths to show all the ways that we say that, and then communicate otherwise on site, you know. And so Joyce was really good. She was really skilled about thinking about these developmental issues when working with children in a church setting. And she got me to thinking about, well, that means that we need to be doing vocational discernment specific to our own age cohort. Because the issues that 18 to 25-year-olds were dealing with are different from the issues that I, as a 77-year-old today, am dealing with, okay? And so we need to be sensitive to what our gifts are. We all still have gifts. They don't lose their value. They don't lose their value. Every child has gifts, and they're very precious gifts. Very precious gifts. And some of the most valuable resources that we have are the things that pop out of a child's mouth and the activities that we're privileged to watch children undertake, and to the development that gives us hope for the human race when we see it manifested in their lives. So this vocational discernment issue was at the heart of everything I've done, and it still continues. I haven't stopped doing it. I keep trying to figure out every day, what is God calling me to do right now? That's what brought me to this living room today, plus an invitation from Stacy. Because I said I would not come back to this building unless my successor invited me back. Okay. This was no longer my ministry. I had to move so my successor could exercise her ministry. Okay. And make myself available to her, as I have over these years, to help and assist in whatever ways I can. And if she says, I need you to do this, I drop everything and do it. Okay. Okay. And fortunately, she doesn't ask me to do it very often.
Usually it's about mysterious items I find in the house.
Right. And it won't surprise anybody here to know that I know what those items are, because I probably found them and saw them and left them in a place where Stacy or somebody else could find them. So I want to stop now, and it's almost 4 o'clock, so I want to give us some time.
And I also wanted to do a very Brent House thing, and you'll bear with me. When we have a speaker come, one of the things we do is we have everybody introduce themselves. And I want to do that today in part because we have folks from very different generations of Sam's ministry, folks that I have worked with, and both. And so just so that we know who else is in the room.
Yeah.
Very quickly. Your name, your pronouns if you choose, and very briefly, what's your connection? What brought you here today? So I'm Stacy. I'm the chaplain here. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm here because I'm the chaplain, and I am just delighted to be able to celebrate Sam. We'll go to DJ. Oh no, we've got
Karen.
We'll go to you.
Karen Meter from St. Chrysostom on the vestry there, and a good parishioner.
Hi friends, I'm TJ. I'm on the bishop's staff, and I'm also on the board of Brent House.
Michelle Mays. I've known Sam from Province 5 way back when I was a grad student, and also briefly on Commission on Ministry.
Tim.
Chris Nelson, Ehan, and I graduated in 1992. I was 4 years. Actually, it's more like 6, because I didn't leave right away in that weird way that U of C people do. I was also one of the founders of Shoestring Theater.
Great. Lynn?
I'm Lynn Brady. I'm a member of St. Chrysostom's, and I'm here to honor a Tar Heel.
Another Tar
Now,
Heel.
who was walking out the door?
That's,
Was that Carol Jean?
no, that was Marilyn Elmos.
Okay.
Marilyn and Dick Elmos.
I'm Heidi Ham, she, her, and I was a bridge between Sam and Stacy from 03 to 06 when I was at the big school.
Anna Mary?
Anna Mary?
I'm Anna Mary Wallace, and I worked on campus for a number of years and always made it my business to get to the Thursday bond chapel services that Sam did, and they were little gems.
Will?
I'm Will Harnett. I'm a member of St. Chrysostom's, and I'm here to pay tribute to Sam, whose preaching at church has been an inspiration and whose conversations have been equally inspirational.
I'm Kate. I'm a PhD student in history at UChicago, and I moved into Brent House during the pandemic in 2020 and was there for 3 years.
Yes, and I'm Frank. I was ordained in 1974. I went to, actually graduated from LSTC. My first church was in Headwish at Lebanon Lutheran Church. I was around when you were here. And since that time, I'm also a musician. I have a church music degree. I got an MDiv and a music degree. And I'm now retired also with 50 years in. So, and I have a lot of things to talk to you about vocation, because that's what I'm revolving around all the time.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff, he, him, and I'm a current parishioner at St. Chrysostom's. I've actually known Sam for almost a couple decades now on his role as a priest.
Actually, Jeff, I've known you since you were a child, because I frequently supplied at the parish in Riverside. Where
LaGrange.
In LaGrange, yeah.
Cliff Chan, and I came to services at Brent House in the early 2000s. I'm Morris Charles, he, him, alum of the Div School, alum of Brent House. I dragged him to services in the early 2000s when I came back to graduate school as a bridge between Sam and Stacy, and I'm coming up on 28 years as a priest, in part because of a conversation I had with Sam about campus ministry that I didn't remember until I said it.
Yeah,
and the Dean of Rockefeller Chapel.
And the Dean of Rockefeller.
Yes,
Chapel.
I'm Peg Swanson. I got my MBA here in 1980, but I did not find the Episcopal Church until 1981, in December of 1981. So that when Sam came and was around in 82, that was my first introduction to the Episcopal Church. And it was such a good introduction that I'm still a parishioner. I am a parishioner at the Church of Our Savior.
I'm Elizabeth Van. You already heard from me. And Brent House was really my road back into the church of my upbringing after about 6 years of discernment. But let me also be Daryl Ford, Sam. Daryl wanted to be here. He had to work yesterday. He has to work tomorrow. He told me we really, really tried to find flights that would let him fly in and fly out on the same day. And it just didn't work out. And Daryl was one of my contemporaries in the community.
Hi, I'm Mike Salmon. I'm the verger at St. Chrysostom's Episcopal Church, thanks to Saint. Well, Sam was my mentor in discernment. Sam taught me what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was 80 years old.
I'm John Craig Cox from St. Chris. Sam has been, in his past ministry here at Brent House, has been a very intelligent and gracious Southern host the many gatherings of the Episcopal Diocese and of St. Chrysostom's Church here. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
I'm Emily Brooks, and I work at St. Chris with Sam and all the other people here who love to see him at his work doing his best things.
Let's keep going back into the back of the room, and then we'll go into the entryway because the overflow crowd.
Oh, me? Okay. I'm Judy Gray, and my daughter Elizabeth Gray came here, and we had a very bad experience with the party you're supposed to get when we lived in Omaha, Nebraska, to learn about the new school, and it turned out to be totally different, and there were only 4 little students in the whole state of Nebraska coming to UC, but the first thing I learned about, the best thing, was Brent House, a young woman next to us standing on the side, because it turned into this alumni thing, which is exactly the wrong thing. You don't want to hear about the past. You want to know what's going on now. She's like, oh, your daughter has to go to this. It's called Brent House, and they have really nice services on Monday, and then you get to have a good dinner. so we had Brent House in our heads from the beginning, and we loved coming here and knowing everyone who came here had a safe harbor in this one.
Rich Gray, I'm a father and husband, and I remember this was Brent House was one place we could always stay coming from Omaha, since there were so few other options around here. So we got to know Stacy and people here very well over those years, and had a great experience here. And we're currently first years at Church of Our Savior.
Good.
Hi, I'm Ann Rounds. I was a peer minister here from 2001 to 2004. It was here that I met my husband, who's home with our daughter currently, and it's here that I gained so much experience in liturgical music, which is something that I'm still discerning through this very moment. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Isabel Guzman-Barone. I worshipped here from 86 to 89, and I was a resident just before summer off and after the house was reopened. And it was a delightful time to be here.
I'm Judith Stockdale. I'm also a member of St. Chrysostom's and a lifelong Anglican. Very nice to have met Sam. I've totally enjoyed his sermons. And we talk about all sorts of things, including how to repot the Brasina. Sam brought to the church this week, how to cook things, and just thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Kiana Johnson. I'm college class of 98. My introduction to Brent House was me crashing the door during O week to say I'd like a meeting with the chaplain, and someone graciously asking, do you have an appointment? Me saying no, because I'm 17 and dumb. And being utterly delightful.
Excuse me.
The 4 years. And I'm also on the board.
My name is Chris Dionysotis, and I am Sam's husband. And I want to thank Stacy for putting all of this together.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm Neil. I come to Sam and Chris' house every day regularly to help Chris and do some other stuff at home, in their home. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gray from where I live. I was class of 2012, so I missed Sam's. I was here when Stacy had been here for a few years, but I did hear tell from people who hadn't quite graduated in 4 years of Sam's time. And I was a peer minister. I was on the board as a student, and then for many years after that until I aged out. And now I am a member of the choir at the cathedral.
Kevin, I'm here to come with you.
I'm John Hillman. I came to Brent House originally in 1968. I part-time remember that project. But that was the John Pyle period. And I still remember some wonderful weekends we had
called the Brent House Institute in Intergroup Communication, where we mix people up and discuss issues of great importance to 20-year-olds.
And I am Newland Smith, he, him. I remember when I arrived in Hyde Park at the University of the Graduate Library School, fourth quarter of 1960, and was part of the Brent House community in 61, 62, and John Hall was the chaplain. Two of the speakers that came, I still remember Joseph Sittler and James Pike. And Sam, I just want to thank you for helping Tim Sedgwick and the factor of myself design the Institute on Human Sexuality for the Emerson Deanery. I don't know what years that was.
Yeah.
A couple years back.
Yeah.
And my final thought is that, Sam, I need to spend a little time with you in my final years for discernment.
So the overflow folks in the hall, who are you?
My name is Dottie Green. This is my husband Bob. We moved here from the Philadelphia area 3 years ago. We were Episcopalians for a long time back home. When we came here, we started going to St. Chris's, and as an added bonus, we discovered we were neighbors of Sam and Chris, and they live in our building. And Sam, we are just delighted to be here to hear this celebration of your ministry. And as a side note, I always knew you were a top banana.
Thanks, Don.
My name is Melissa Perrin, and Sam and I have had some amazing conversations about discernment and lay ministry. I've a few that I remember vividly, and I'm here today because you're here. And I just really couldn't pass up the opportunity to be in the same room with you. And so thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
I am Mary Hope Griffin. I am the former chair of the board. I was the board chair at Brent House for almost 10 years, I think. Sam, when Stacy says, you can call Sam, Sam showed up for us when we needed help, whether it was maintaining our cool with processes in the diocese, or whether it was, trying to figure out what the light fixture was for the front porch that was going to match most closely to the original. Sam was really a presence, and I think offered Stacy and I and lots of members of the board, incredible support through happy and challenging moments. Husband of mine.
I'm like Thomas. The immediate past board chair, emeritus spouse.
I'm Bob Grieve. I go with Dottie, who's much more eloquent than I am, but I will say Sam always has a ministry going on, and in our building as neighbors, you and Chris have been so wonderful in terms of welcoming us and helping us adjust to a whole new life, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. That's really...
I'm Mark Tabbitt, and I have the honor of being Sam's friend. We've had many intersections here with students over the years. I remember coming to a Thanksgiving holiday here at Brent House, and I am a retired CP supervisor from Rush University Medical Center. Some of our former students are here, and it's just really wonderful to celebrate you.
Thanks.
I'm Reverend Will Movell. I started as a peer minister here in my undergrad, and then now the associate rector at the Holy Comforter in Kenilworth. And this was a huge part of my discernment journey. And I'm so grateful for Sam and for getting to be here to celebrate.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Anna DeGoyce. I'm a current member of the Brent House board.
And she kept me in line trying to get this thing planned.
Jacob. I'm a resident here and house manager. I'm a function of the Holy Orders and Diocese of Divinity at University, and I'm the faculty executive at the campus.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hopkins. Nathan mentioned me earlier. I'm an alum from 2005 to 9, so Stacy's first few years, and I serve as chair of the board currently.
Okay, I'm Tony's girlfriend.
She's at Yale,
Everybody out in the hall.
she's at Yale Divinity School, which is an okay place.
Acceptable.
That's our crowd. So, moving quickly, questions. We'll
Yes.
let people ask questions of either of our two presenters.
Can we get a printing of that print that you had up? Like, I think that should be a problem. That's more of a request than a question.
A print of which?
The woodcut.
Yeah.
Oh, the woodcut.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, I have been wondering about this.
Yeah.
That woodcut, I love it. We just discovered it.
It was one of the great discoveries.
Yes.
Like the
And
this archival.
for those of you who might be interested, we have those on a T-shirt, and the T-shirt is in the dining room. You make a donation, you get a T-shirt. How's that? You get a free one, and Chris too.
But we should think about posters too. I agree.
Yeah.
Sell them.
Yeah.
Fundraiser.
Do you know anything about who carved it, who made it?
I know nothing about that, and I wish I did. It came to me through when I was trawling through the diocesan archives. Newland was a great help with that. I thank you so much. That showed up as like in the archive, the version that the diocesan archives has is a photocopy already. There is no date. It's clear from like the reference that it's at some point before Brent House as like an institute for like international like ministry to what was called at the time Oriental students. It was clearly before that merges with the campus ministry at the University of Chicago. So that places it at some point. I would guess that it's sometime in like the mid to late 1940s, but I can't tell you exactly. And there's no artist information, unfortunately. I would love to know. Yeah. It's a beautiful like print of the house. Yeah.
Morris.
What is it like for you to watch your mentees and your students grow up?
What is it like for me to watch my former students and mentees to grow up? It's a joy. It really is. One of the first things that I was invited to do after I retired in December of 2004. And in spring of that year, I attended a Credo conference, which is a program for clergy in the Episcopal Church. And I went to, it was a week-long wellness conference where we had an opportunity to do a lot of reflection on where we were in our ministries and what we might need to do to take better care of ourselves and our communities, and to discern what our next steps might be in vocation. I did that in March, knowing that I was going to be leaving Brent House in December. And unbeknownst to me, I later found out, the faculty for the Credo Conference, which was a team of 8 people, that team always met at the end of the conference and reviewed the participants, and were asked, were there any participants in this group that you would recommend as faculty on a Credo faculty? And I am pleased and amused to say that I was told that a bidding war broke out over who was going to get me. And fortunately, the team that I ended up on, the conference leader who won, oddly enough and providentially, was the rector of Trinity Church in Asheville, North Carolina, which had been my sponsoring parish for ordination. Just very ironic. And so I went on, and over the next 12 years, I served on a Credo faculty team, sometimes because I was retired, on more than one team, because if they had an opening and had a vacancy and they needed a sub for an absentee, I was often called into service. So in the course of doing Credo conferences, working on Credo faculty teams, almost every Credo group that I encountered included one person that I had known at some point in their discernment. And that was one of the special gifts of being called to that ministry and discerning that that was something that I wanted to do. The opportunity to go back and reconnect with somebody who had been in ordained ministry for 7 to 10 years and were in a position to reflect with me again about where they were and what the shape of their ministry was going to be. So it's been a joy. It continues to be a joy. I've often said that, Chris and I don't have biological children, but Chris was an elementary school teacher for 34 years in the same school and taught, in some cases, a couple of generations of kids in the same family. And of course, I've been a priest for a long, long time. And so we've both had the privilege of working with other people's children. And so I think he would agree with me that we're always concerned that parents of young children understand that we appreciate everything they do because we're going to get the product of those years further down the line. So we're very grateful to the work that parents do because we see the impact of that at other stages in a person's life. Those are part of the joys. Frank?
Yes, I'm a pastor and I'm also a church musician. And another vocation is also a spiritual director. I've been trained as a spiritual director. So have you written anything on discernment?
Yes, in fact, have I written anything on discernment? Yes. Send me an email, Frank, and I'll send you the bibliography. Several of the books that I've written.
Most of Sam's books on display in the archival collection that I've curated in the far room.
Yeah. And there were a lot of articles too at various points along the way, so I can send you that. Other questions?
Do you have any suggestions for us as to how we should discern what we should do in this moment, given the state of our nation?
That's a really good question. It's something that I do think about that a lot. At one level, that is so far above my pay grade. I despair sometimes at what can be done. And I think that, again, it goes back to one of the primary elements of discernment is discerning and determining what you are able to do and giving your attention to the people in the sphere that you are in, okay? The small things, the old saying, think globally but act locally. It's you, as far as the big picture is concerned, I'm powerless to do anything about that on that scale. I have the power of the ballot box, so I can vote, and I have the networks of friends that are part of my life with whom I can collaborate, and together I can use my gifts with their gifts to do what needs to be done, and then leave it up to God. I do think one of the most precious words of advice, and I've shared this with a lot of my mentees, one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten was given to me by the bishop that guided me through the ordination process and ordained me to the diaconate, Matthew George Henry, who was Bishop of Western North Carolina. And I always appreciated the little pithy quote that he left me with. He said, "It's a really vain person who cannot go to bed and get a good night's sleep and leave the running of the universe to God." That's helped me get to sleep.
If I could just piggyback on that, because this is in terms of the days that we live in. I think Morris will testify to this, and Heidi, who is working with students right now as well on campus, and any of the students who are in the room. One of the things that I have been struck by in the last, 10 months, is that all of the hot issues that we are dealing with in the current climate, they are all happening on campus. It is all here. So issues of immigration, issues around sexuality, gay, lesbian, trans folks. I've had several conversations with trans students, looking at plans B, C, D, and E in case things get worse. Cuts in research funding, the language that gets used in science, department title changes. So in this current climate, please be praying for us. This is a time when the work that people like Sam helped build a foundation for is absolutely crucial. Because if you all are overwhelmed, imagine what it's like to be facing the world ahead when you're pretty sure you have another 60 years to go, and not a lot behind you for perspective.
I do know that one of the things that we did and tried to do in a lot of those programs that we were arranging or allowing to happen, encouraging to happen, enabling to happen. Every one of those programs that Nathan put up there on the screen for you to see, those were not ideas that I thought of and enacted. Those came from conversations with students. Every one of those series we did for graduate students, they came from focus groups of students from those schools. Each one of those programs started when a law, for example, when a law student said, "You've been doing these programs for the doctors. Why aren't you doing anything for the lawyers?" They said, "Let's talk about that. Get 3 or 4 of your friends and we'll have dinner together and we'll start talking about it." And that's how those programs were generated. It was just by opening the invitation and saying, "Let's talk about this." And I would always say, "What do you want to talk about, or what needs to be done? And what do you need to make that happen?" And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't money. It was something that we could actually contribute. They needed a place to meet. They needed a place that was hospitable. They needed a place that was equipped for meetings, okay? And those were things that we had to do. That's why we were here. We didn't have to pay for that. And for a lot of initiatives, those practical, logical issues are the ones that drive the overhead up. We just allowed and encouraged people, gave them the opportunity and the resources they needed to do the work that was theirs to do. As I said earlier, everybody in this room is skilled, and some of us have been trained in specific areas of skill. And the most important teaching that I've tried to instill is that every single one of you has a vocation, and that vocation is innate. It's embedded in who you are, because God made this diverse creation that depends upon parents and farmers and some clergy, just a few, but attorneys. We have more attorneys than we need. But, all of these skills are needed, and each one of them is a ministry in itself. That's what the church doesn't tell you often enough, that this is your ministry. what you have been equipped to do is your ministry. It is sacred, it is holy, and it is a contribution to the whole. We need it. We all need each other. And when we start to work together, it makes a difference. Talk to the people who started talking with each other outside the Broadview Migration Center, where a lot of the most recent unpleasantness has been focused in our own community. It was the voices of the people in those communities who said, we've got to do something about this. And they started putting together their abilities, and they've started doing something about it, and it's making a difference. And that's how the world continues to turn, on the strength of these gifts and our ability to collaborate. One of the things that grew out, one of the central issues that I identified, that Gary and I identified in Inquiring and Discerning Hearts, was that one of the primary contributions that campus ministry and other ministries had to offer was we kept encouraging face-to-face communications and gatherings and meetings. In a culture that has continued to be more and more atomized as it drives, everything has become highly individualized, and we've been convenienced out of face-to-face relationships. Now, some of those conveniences are allowing some people to share this event this afternoon, and I put my arms around you as much as I can. And I appreciate the fact of those of you who are tuned in across the distance. And I'm very thankful for the facility that we have that allows me to speak with you and you to be a part of this. But I think we would all agree it is not the same thing as being in the room and hugging each other and speaking face to face and reading our body language and actually being in a relationship with one another and going away with a few more names than we had when we arrived, and maybe a new friend or two. There's no substitute for the collective, none, and the relationships that grow out of that. And that's what we fostered here, and that's what we foster in the church. It's one of the things that the church has done as its calling. We have, we've tried to be as welcoming as we can, and we've tried to, to reconfigure that institution as much as we can, but we continue to come back to the reality that the primary value in what we do is in gathering people together and providing opportunities like this. And if we provide the opportunity, it does make a difference.
I think that is a perfect note to end on.
I have one quick thing to read that I wanted to end on, and that is, if this is the time to do that.
Sure.
I just wanted to share this. This is a piece that came to me in the year that I retired from this ministry. It's an excerpt from an address that was given by Rowan Williams to a group of seminarians in the Diocese of Cuddison College in Wales. And this definition of the church is, to my mind, one of the best definitions of the church for our time and our age. The church is, first of all, a kind of space cleared by God through Jesus, in which people may become what God has made them to be. And that what we have to do about the church is not first to organize it as a society, but to inhabit it as a climate or a landscape. It's a place where we can see properly God, God's creation, ourselves. It's a place or dimension in the universe that is in some way growing towards being the universe itself in restored relation to God. It's a place we're invited to enter, the place occupied by Christ, who is himself the climate and atmosphere of a renewed universe. It's the best definition of the church. It's a very good definition of what this place has done and continues to be. And I treasure it. I'm so grateful to Rowan. And he is among the people who spoke in this place over the years. And the gift of hospitality comes with occupying the space. It's a given. So that, I think, is a good place to segue.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we thank those who were part of the live stream. We're gonna close that down now. For those who might want to see it or give it to folks who wanted to be here but could not.